Humbles, my buddy Josh Smith from out in Clinton, Handsome in the Humbles, and that is We're All the Same. And yes, those of you that are listening to the Brian Hornback Experience, this is episode 62. Those of you that don't like my use of colorful language, yes, I can. I don't use it on the Brian Hornback podcast. Those of you that know me personally know that I do have colorful language in my real life, but I don't use it here. But I can let Josh use it. But yes, the story of that, I've used that song before, and I think it's probably good to use it for this podcast because again, we're getting into the candidates, we're getting into the election season, and this one is we've got Dominic Oakley. She is an independent candidate for school board out in the 7th District, which is Powell Halls, that area, the area that Patty Bounce has served for the last 8 years. Dominic, how are you this morning?
I'm wonderful this morning, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great. So appreciate you being on. And, you know, the funny thing about it is I think that song by Handsome and the Humbles, We're All the Same, you know, it seems like for school board for the last year or so, it's just been a constant argument with everybody. And so hopefully after this election season, after candidates can compare and contrast one another and the voters vote, and then at some point, hopefully we can move on beyond all the controversy. But let's talk about you. First of all,
absolutely.
You're an experienced educator and a mother of special needs children. According to your Facebook page, it says that you'll bring integrity, experience, compassion, common sense to Knox County School Board District 7. But let's talk about first. As I'm stumbling over my words here, you are a native Knoxvillian.
Yes, sir. I am born at UT Hospital.
Right. All right. And then you're a mother and a wife. You've been a teacher and a small business owner.
Yes, sir.
And so you began teaching in the Atlanta area.
I did. I started teaching in Atlanta back, so I'm a 4th generation Knoxville educator.
Great.
And when I graduated out of Maryville College, my family said to me, "Look, this was 20 years ago. First of all,
right?
About 20 years ago, my grandparents said, look, education, yes, is and I firmly believe this is one of the highest callings you can have. However, right now, education in Knox County is not where it needs to be. Go start someplace else." Our pay was not where it needed to be for teachers. It still isn't.
Oh, it's
Our
awful.
Respect for teachers was starting to already wane because of what we were going through as a district. This was not too long after consolidation, so things were still very dicey. There was still this, his, mine, and yours kind of fight within the county and the city as far as the schools were concerned. And at the time, most of the positions that were open in Knox County were not highly desirable ones. So I went and I put out applications, and I ended up getting picked up in the Atlanta area and working in a district down there, which gave me a lot of opportunity to be in a district that was growing very quickly. It was a bedroom community for Atlanta, and it was exploding. And it had been a rural community. Similar to Knoxville in the fact that it had been around for forever and had been a predominantly white community, very small, and it was exploding and having a lot of minority growth and a lot of urban growth. So I got to come up through a system that was going through similar to what Knox County is going through. And, it was very educational for me as a teacher as well as, for a human. It's a totally different experience than I would have had if I'd started teaching here.
So you were an English and social studies teacher, and then you also became a special needs middle school teacher, right?
Yes, yeah. I started off teaching. I taught Title I reading and math at the elementary level. So I was pushing into a very, very low economic school that was a Title I school, and pushing into all classroom ages between kindergarten and 5th grade, because that's what Title I does.
Right.
You work with whoever needs you. So I was bouncing from classroom to classroom when I first started. And then I got put in the middle of the year, out of the blue, we had a teacher that didn't make it through the year. And so I ended up with a 5th grade class. Boom, here you go. Have some kids.
Wow.
I literally left on Friday afternoon with hey, you're going to have a class on Monday morning. And came back Monday morning to, as a classroom teacher, and was like, oh, well, this is how this is done. And then at the end of at the close of that school year, my principal was so impressed that she took me with her to go open a new school, open a new middle school. And I ended up opening a brand spanking new 7th grade classroom that was on a short man team, which means there was only 3 of us, to teach all 4 of the major academic subjects. And so we all taught social studies, and I also taught language arts. And then after that year, I loved it so much that I stayed, and she loved me so much that she talked me into having some special needs and gifted children. And I love them so much that I continued with that. And over the years, I've gotten more and more involved in special ed, because the reality is the more we can do for the most difficult situations, the more we can do for every student.
Right.
We learn so much more from those kids about how learning works and alternative options that then I can bring back to my classroom and work with all of my students with. And so I've always just found that the special ed curriculum and the special ed intervention development, the things that we do to help those students, really make me a more empowered educator and a more creative educator. And so I really, really love that. And so that's what I've been doing on and off since then. I've tried to step away. I had children in the Atlanta area, and realized I needed to bring them back home. That I wanted them to grow up where I grew up. I wanted them to have the experience I had. So I brought them home, and it's been great to have them around family. And now they're they're in the middle school and don't need me nearly so much. So. But yeah, it's been a wild ride in education, and now I've found myself being called back, to run for school board.
Well, that's great. So it's Knox County, obviously, as about the time you left after graduating from Maryville College is about the time that I was actually on the school board. I served from 2000 to 2004 in the seat that Susan Horn is currently occupying. But it's funny that as we talk about education, it seems like we're always kind of, nothing really ever changes. Pay in Knox County is never where it needs to be. We go through situations where turnover, we're not able to keep the teachers we need to keep, and especially in the special needs area. I mean, as we talk about special education, John McCook ran that department for years, and then I'm having a brain lapse right now. And then the person that had it in, but Missy oh crap. Anyway.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of the name this morning either. It's too early in the morning,
absolutely. But anyway. And now I guess, and I've not gotten to know this Jason Myers yet, who's running special ed. But I just hear a lot. I just hear a lot of frustration, I guess, that special education educators aren't feeling supported by the department. And I there's always been that because of what special education entails for an educator. But
absolutely.
But I think we have to, at some point, the district's got to decide we're going to make education a priority. Now, again, I don't think throwing money at it is necessarily the issue, but I think there's other things that the district can do, and I think bringing on a new superintendent will bring some. Whether it's Dr. Reiswick or, as we're recording this, we're on the eve of the school board actually casting that vote.
Yes, they're all busy deliberating at home, I'm sure.
I'm sure they're surely not deliberating amongst one another. They're deliberating among themselves, I hope. But anyway,
at home.
Right.
Yes, certainly,
Right. But as we bring on, whether it's Dr. Reiswick or Dr. Cash, I think that too is going to be something. And then, of course, we're going to have a new school board come September 1st. So, just what do you envision? So first of all, you're running as an independent. The school board,
Yes, sir, I am.
the state legislature decided that school boards back in the early '90s, we had partisan elections, and then they decided that we needed to have nonpartisan elections, and so we went through that. And even as a Republican, I was elected nonpartisan to the school board, and now the legislature's changed that. So we're going through that again this year. This is the first time in the last 25 or 30 years that we'll have partisan elections. So some people are lined up Republican. There's not anybody running as a Democrat in the 7th district, but you're running as an independent. So you're not actually going to be on the ballot until August.
I will not be on the primary ballot,
right.
But I think the important thing here for me is that as an independent, the reason I'm running as an independent, for me, I am a teacher first and foremost.
Right.
Like I said, 4th generation educator. It is
right.
literally an environment I have grown up in. And while I can tell you many, many things about my grandparents and my parents and my great-grandparents, I cannot tell you how they vote.
Right.
Because educators, as people, we are trained, and in fact, I even had to sign a code of ethics when I started teaching, specifically social studies, that I would not bring my personal, political, religious views into the classroom. That I would leave those opinions at my classroom door and provide students with an open, welcoming opportunity to grow their own.
Right.
And because I believe that so strongly, there is no place for me to work in education, even in an elected position, where I would bring my own personal political views.
Right.
To the classroom, or even religious views to the classroom. Because really, a school board, and you know this having been on the board, a school board member should be the apex of educator.
Right.
It should be, just like we expect our president to be the highest of public service, so should our school board members be the highest of educators.
Well, and in researching candidates, as I've always done, I have a tendency to look at public documents, and people's voting record is a public document. And I thought it was real interesting that when I looked at your voting record, you're not a party. When you do cast votes in the past, you have not cast a party line vote. I've heard some people say, well, Dominique Oakley is she's a liberal Democrat. Well, no, your Knox County voting record has been you've voted in both primaries when you voted, and so it's just I don't.
I voted how the issues stand.
Right.
I tend to not vote a party. I tend
right.
to totally vote an issue.
Right.
And I'm more than willing to be open and honest about that with anyone who asks.
Yep.
Additionally, people had somebody already kind of make a side eye at my voting record because there's 10 years that are missing.
Well,
10 years that are missing, or Georgia.
You weren't here, right? Exactly.
Right. And Georgia does not have that same. Or at least when I was living there, they did not have that same way of keeping record. Nor did they have you vote party. You
right.
actually got to vote your issues. So
right.
it was actually kind of shocking to me when I moved back to Knox County that I had to pick a party. I had like a 20-minute conversation at the voting box the first time in tears, going, but I don't want to pick a party. I want to be able to vote for this issue and that issue. She's like, but honey, those are on separate tickets. You can't
right.
vote both
right.
those things.
Right.
So,
well, and again, when Virginia Babb is not running again, Evity Satterfield is not running again. Patty Bounds, who the seat you're running for, she served for 8 years and she's not running again. So we have 3 people out of the 5 that aren't running again. But when I talked to Virginia Babb, she said, well, I was going to run as an independent, and then I decided I'm not going to run. And I said, Virginia, I actually believe that her district and Evity's district were the type of district that they, as incumbents, could probably have won as an independent, because I think that their record would have stood I think their record would have stood for them to do that. But then again, as a blogger, as a podcaster, I also refuse to tell somebody that they should or should not run. So
right.
I didn't offer her that suggestion until after she had already made the decision she wasn't going to run. And so,
I can understand why they are not running for other reasons.
Right.
To be honest.
Well, and
The reality is Patty Bounds has put 40 years into public service. I mean, she came straight out of that classroom and straight into the school board after 30 years in a kindergarten. And of all the many things I have done, I can tell you kindergartners are exhausting.
It would be like it would be like herding cats for sure.
Right, exactly. And then she essentially the last 2 years on the board has been herding cats that are in fact, attached to rocket packs.
Right.
I mean, it's been a level of 7-dimensional chess, never mind 3.
Well,
so I feel for her and feel like she very much deserves as much of a break as she wants.
Well, and she also had I guess it was last year or maybe a year and a half ago, whatever. She ran for the legislature, and that was that primary for her to run for the legislature, that was a whole another issue too. But so if we could get past, let's just say that come September 1st, when you're the school board member, and let's just say that the whole everything we've talked about for the last 2 years, 3 years, let's just say all that's gone. Ideally, what do you envision for the next 4 years with Knox County Schools? What if you could just say this is exactly how it's going to be? Talk to us about that.
If I could say exactly how it's going to be, and wonderful situation. It would be lovely if the issues from the last several years were not going to be holding over into my actual time in service. I think that is unfortunately a pie in the sky situation that's not going to happen for us, because the mask mandate is going to last through 2023, unfortunately, because of the way the court, unless we manage to make some crazy outside the court mediation that everybody seems to think is not going to happen. And that's unfortunate. It would be nice if we could reach some agreement, but doesn't appear that's how it's going to be. So in a much more better world, where we weren't having that fight, I would seriously be looking at teacher retention. That is one of our major issues here in Knox County, is really leaning into how can we better support our educators? How can we better streamline our processes to make it easier for teachers? Those are things that don't necessarily cost us any money. They may just cost us time and creativity. And that's something we can do. There are places like actual financing for the teachers where I would love to say, let's give them all a raise. But that gets complicated. That's not just something I can do as a school board member. It's something I can advocate for. But it does take the back half of that is we've got to have a superintendent who's on board with it. And we've also got to have a county commission that's on board.
Right.
And that's a lot of moving pieces, as we are seeing, over what has been going on recently. It takes a lot to get all those bodies to agree.
Right.
So, and I think everybody agrees, in all honesty, that public education isn't well funded. I think, even people who have opted for private school education, that's part of the reason they've opted is because they agree public school is not well funded. Public teachers are not well paid. These are things we all agree on. How to get to the point where they are well funded, and when they are well paid, that's a place where everybody is still in their own mire, and we've got to start working on getting everybody out of the mud and start actually climbing out and making things better.
What's funny is back 20 plus years ago when I was running for the school board, the issue of public private has always been in whether we should have we have a legislature that wants to spend money. They want to give people the option for charter schools. They want people to be able to take their tax dollars, which I guess they think that there's a whole lot of tax dollars out there that each person pays, and they want those tax dollars. They want you to be able to take your tax dollars to pay for your twins' education. Well, ideally, we're not paying you and your household are not necessarily paying enough taxes to pay for that education, but that's a whole nother issue we'll talk about on another day. But what I found interesting back even 20 plus years ago is that friends of mine who have chosen private education were outraged that people were wanting to take public dollars and spend it toward private schools, because they said, look, we have the ability, we've chosen to prioritize our child's education to go to private. We don't want our tax dollars going to our private school because we're making that decision on our own, and so at some point, and my Republican and conservative friends are going to get very irate at me at this, But public dollars should go to public schools. Private dollars should go to private schools. Now, again, there's going to be, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean,
in my case, I have actually taught in several of the private schools and taught private school children here in Knox County.
Oh, wow.
So in one of the unique things that I've gotten to do, I worked with children who are, for whatever reason, sometimes it's some type of homebound, or maybe because of surgery or something like that. Or maybe they have, the parents have an unusual career that causes them to travel, and so they need some tutoring or some unusual times to be educated. Additionally, I've worked with children that are special needs, that have maybe a learning difficulty, so like a sensory auditory processing or dyslexia, something like that.
Sure.
They're still great kids. They're still completely and totally the kind of student that, say, a private school would actually go out and want. Maybe they're an athlete, that's really exceptional, that has been drafted into a program. I worked with one of those that ended up having an injury that was severe enough that while they were at a private school, they needed a home-based educator.
Mm.
So I ended up pushing in and being that educator, because we educate students where they are. So having worked with lots of teachers at private schools and worked with several different private schools in this county, I can tell you they don't want the public money, because the reality is public money comes with strings.
Absolutely.
They want to do things their way. They have built a system that works for them, that works for their students. They select the students that they want to have within that system to educate their way, and that's why it works for them. If they start having public money come in and tell them what to do, then they don't have those same luxuries, and they're not going to have that same product, and they're not okay with that. That's not what they want. They have built a system to create a specific thing, and if they start, essentially, we have built, say, let's talk about gasoline, for example. When you put in, petroleum, we get out gasoline. Well, if in this case, this would be like expecting to get out gasoline, but putting in, say, rubber bands.
Right.
You're not going to get the same product.
Right. Well,
that's what's going to happen with private education, and they know that. And so they're not as interested in those dollars as people think they are.
And
like,
private
schools are advocating for it. I'm like, no, the private schools are not
advocating for it. No, they're not. No, they're not. And as a matter of fact, the private schools are so full right now, they couldn't take a public school kid if they wanted to right now.
Exactly. That is another thing in Knox County. If we start saying, I'm going to pull my child out of public school and put them someplace else, where are you going to put them? Because they don't exist.
Right.
There are not spots.
Right.
The waiting list at most of these private schools has been decades long for the ones that everybody wants to put their kids in. And for the new ones, they still have wait lists.
Right.
I mean, any parent that has tried to find any type of home care or any type of after-school care or any type of child care knows how hard it is to find somebody to work with your child. Yep. Even if you have a completely normal situation, it's still hard. You've got to get on a wait list to get into the child care that you want, that's close to your house, that has the things that you want. And that's what's going to happen with schools too. Do you really want to be on a wait list?
Exactly. Well, we're 25 minutes in, and really this was I'm definitely going to be having you back on, obviously, as we get closer to the August timeline. But this was really just an opportunity for us to get to know who Dominic Oakley is. On Facebook, it's Vote Dominique, VOTE DOMINIQUE. Vote Dominique is where they can find out about your campaign and when you have when and where you're going to be and all those other great things. Anything else that we need to let people know where they can find you other than Facebook? Is there,
you can also find me on my website.
Okay.
It's Vote Dominique. That's once again, VOTE DOMINIQUE. That's votedominique.com.
Great.
So I'm there, and you can find a lot of my platform ideas. I've got a blog that I maintain there too, so you're getting constant feedback. Additionally, I do a lot of meetups, so you can find me at the meetups at Mahalo. I do Mahalo Coffee on Emory Road up here in the district. That's a big one that I'm doing. And then this week, Thursday evening, you're going to be able to find me at Albright. I'm supporting the 6th annual Pint Night. They're supporting ARC here in Knoxville, which works with our special needs population.
And by the way,
love to everybody come out, have a beer, and support ARC.
That is Thursday, February 24th.
It is.
And I do need to say that when I first met Dominique for the very first time at the community meeting for the superintendent search, she told me about pretzel bites at Culver's.
Pretzel bites at Culver's. So
with beer
Culver's.
cheese. With beer
Pretzel
cheese.
bites at Culver's with beer cheese is amazing, and if you haven't had them, you have got to go out of your way. I have no association with Culver's other than having vacationed once in Wisconsin and fell in love with them up there.
Well,
I was so excited when we got them here in Knoxville.
That night I went there and I got to order pretzel bites and beer cheese at the one on Kingston Pike, near Cedar Bluff, and then. So that was, let's see, today's Monday. So that was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So in the last 4 days, I've been to Culver's twice for pretzel bites and beer cheese. So anyway.
Everyone has this experience. It is just what happens. For a little while there, they only had the pretzel bites seasonally. And when the pretzel bites went away, this was during COVID, my dear sweet husband, then he and my at the time, not quite 12-year-old son, mounted a campaign to figure out how to make them. And now we can actually make pretzel bites similar. They're not quite the same, but they're similar. We still haven't perfected the beer cheese. We're getting close. Our fondue is pretty good.
Nice.
It's not quite there. So that's something we had to do as a home thing during COVID because we could not go out and explore more places. But, man, we knew we needed that. So now, in district, the other place you can find me pretty frequently, and this will explain my Culver's addiction, I have a Brewster's problem.
Oh, yes,
so
I understand.
I'm one of those people you can look for at Brewster's. I'm often there. If it is above, say, like 60 degrees, I'm in front of Brewster's because they know how to make me happy. So
Brewster's is good, but I've been since about November. I've been losing some weight, but I do have a new addiction, which is pretzel bites with beer cheese from Culver's, thanks to Dominique. And so when I'm cheating on clean eats, it's because I've gone to Culver's and gotten pretzel bites and beer cheese. So
that's okay.
It's all Dominique's problems.
A walking podcast next time.
There you go. There you go.
We'll have to walk and talk next time. Everybody will hear us all out of breath, but that's okay because between my ice cream problem and your beer cheese problem, we'll have to.
There you go. There you go. All right, everybody, go check out votedominique.com. Check out her meetups. Those of you in the Powell Halls community, you've got a choice come August the 4th. And Dominique will be on your ballot. So check her out, and we'll talk to you again soon, Dominique.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful to be here today.
Yep.